My name is Emily, and I am the reason my marriage ended. I betrayed the man who loved me more honestly than anyone ever had. The worst part is, he didn't suspect a thing. Not once. Not a single question. Not a flicker of doubt in his eyes. And that trust, that blind, beautiful trust, is what destroyed me long before I confessed. My husband's name is Daniel. We had been married for 6 years, together for 9. We built our life slowly, brick by brick, like something meant to last. Daniel wasn't loud. He wasn't dramatic. He didn't make grand speeches about love, but he showed up. Every single day, he made coffee before I woke up. He warmed up my car in the winter. He remembered how I liked my eggs. He kissed my forehead every night, even if we had argued. We had plans, big ones. We had just put a deposit down on a piece of land outside the city. A white house with a wraparound porch, a golden retriever, 2 kids. He already had baby names saved in his phone. I used to tease him about it. I thought I was happy. Maybe I was, until something inside me shifted. It started at work. A new marketing campaign, new hires, new energy. That's when I met Ryan. Ryan was different from Daniel in every possible way. Charismatic, quick with words, confident in a way that filled every room he walked into. He noticed things, complimented my ideas, told me I was brilliant in meetings. Daniel told me I was strong. Ryan told me I was exciting. There's a difference. At first, it was harmless. Lunch breaks. Long conversations about music, travel, dreams we never chased. He asked me what I would do if I wasn't married. I laughed it off. But the question stayed with me. What would I do? I started staying later at the office. I told Daniel we were behind on deadlines. He believed me. Of course he did. Ryan and I started texting. Memes, inside jokes. Then deeper things, complaints about life, about feeling stuck, about wondering if this was it. One night, after everyone had left, we were alone in the conference room finishing a presentation. It was raining outside. The lights were dim. The kind of setting that makes bad decisions feel cinematic. He looked at me differently that night. "You deserve more," he said quietly. More, that word echoed inside me. More than what? More than stability, more than loyalty. More than a man who had never once made me question his love. Ryan stepped closer. I should have stepped back. I didn't. When he kissed me, it felt electric. Not because it was love, but because it was forbidden. And that terrified me because I liked it. I went home that night and Daniel was asleep on the couch, waiting for me, the TV still on, a blanket half falling to the floor. He woke up when I came in. "Hey," he mumbled, smiling. "You okay? You look tired." I said yes. I lied so easily. That's the thing about betrayal no one talks about. The first lie is the hardest. The second is easier. By the 10th, you barely feel it. The affair didn't explode into passion overnight. It grew slowly. Stolen hours, hotel rooms during work conferences, messages deleted before I got home. Ryan made me feel alive. Daniel made me feel safe. And instead of appreciating safety, I convinced myself I was suffocating in it. I started finding faults in Daniel. Small ones, the way he folded laundry, the way he planned everything months in advance, the way he trusted me without question. Especially that. His trust became a mirror I couldn't look into. But he never suspected. He would kiss me goodbye in the mornings and tell me he loved me. He would text me reminders to eat lunch. He would send me house listings for inspiration. And I would be in another man's arms by the afternoon. I don't know when guilt turned into something physical. It started with not sleeping. I would lie next to Daniel at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. Ryan's hands. Daniel's smile, Ryan's voice, Daniel's plans for our future. I stopped eating properly. Food tasted like cardboard, coffee made me nauseous, I lost weight. Daniel noticed. "Are you stressed?" he asked one morning, brushing hair from my face. "We can postpone the house if it's too much." He was willing to delay his dream for my comfort, and I was destroying his life behind his back. Ryan started talking about leaving his girlfriend. He said we could start over somewhere new, that what we had was real. Was it? Or was it just two selfish people enjoying secrecy? The thrill started fading. The reality started creeping in. I began imagining Daniel finding out, his face, his silence. That image haunted me more than anything. One evening, Daniel came home earlier than usual. I was in the shower, texting Ryan, laughing about something stupid. Daniel walked into the bathroom to grab a towel. I almost dropped my phone. He didn't see anything. He didn't check. He just kissed my shoulder through the shower curtain and said, "I made your favorite pasta." And I felt something crack inside my chest. That night, I couldn't breathe. I looked at him sleeping beside me and realized something horrifying. He loved me completely, and I was living a double life. The next morning, Ryan texted me, "When are you going to choose?" Choose. I didn't answer. Because deep down, I already knew something neither of them did. I wasn't choosing between two men. I was choosing between who I was and who I had become. And I was starting to hate the person I saw in the mirror. I thought I could keep it contained. End things quietly. Delete the evidence, be a better wife. Pretend it never happened. But guilt doesn't disappear, it grows, it seeps into your skin, your voice, your touch. Daniel started asking if I was okay more often. "You feel distant," he said one night. I almost told him then. But fear won, not fear of losing him, fear of seeing disappointment in his eyes. That would have been easier if he screamed. If he accused, if he doubted. But he trusted me, and that trust became unbearable. I ended things with Ryan a week later. He didn't take it well. "You're choosing comfort over passion," he said. Maybe. Or maybe I was finally seeing clearly. But ending the affair didn't end the damage. Because Daniel still didn't know. And every time he talked about our future, about breaking ground on the house in spring, about how lucky he felt to have me, I felt like I was stealing something sacred. I stopped sleeping entirely. I would sit in the kitchen at 3 a.m., shaking, staring at my phone, rereading old messages I hadn't deleted yet. Proof, evidence, poison. I knew there were only two possible endings to this story. Either he would find out, or I would tell him, and both would destroy us. I just didn't know which one I was strong enough to face. The confession didn't happen the way I imagined. There was no dramatic confrontation, no phone left unlocked, no lipstick on a collar, no suspicious credit card charge. It was a Sunday morning. Daniel was sitting at the kitchen table, sketching ideas for the house again. He had this habit of redesigning the same living room over and over, as if perfection could be engineered. "Bigger windows," he said, smiling at me. "You love natural light." I felt my throat close. I couldn't swallow, couldn't breathe. He looked so peaceful, so certain about us. And I realized something unbearable. If I stayed silent, I would be building that house on a lie. Every brick would carry it, every wall would echo it. "Daniel," I said. My voice sounded foreign. He looked up immediately. Concern flashed across his face. "What's wrong?" I sat down across from him, and for a second I almost changed my mind. I almost said I was just tired. That work was stressful, that I needed a vacation. Instead, I said the one sentence that split my life in half. "I've been seeing someone." The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Daniel didn't react right away. He didn't stand up. He didn't knock the chair over. He just blinked. "What do you mean?" he asked carefully. That careful tone broke me. "I had an affair." His hands were still on the sketchpad. I watched his fingers tighten slowly, wrinkling the paper. "How long?" he asked. 3 months. He nodded once. "Is it still going on?" "No, I ended it." Another nod. He was too calm. It terrified me. I started talking too fast, words spilling out, trying to explain something that had no excuse. I told him it wasn't about him, that I felt lost, that I hated myself, that I couldn't eat or sleep, that I ended it because I love him. The word love sounded grotesque in my mouth. Daniel finally looked at me fully, and I saw it. Not rage, not hatred, something worse, disappointment. It was like watching a light go out behind his eyes. "I never would have done that to you," he said quietly. I started crying then, not dramatic sobbing, just this broken, shaking collapse. "I know," I whispered. "I know." He stood up and walked to the window. He stayed there for a long time. I could see his reflection in the glass, his jaw tight, his breathing uneven. "Did you sleep with him in our bed?" he asked without turning around. "No," I said quickly. "Never." That mattered to me. I don't know if it mattered to him. "Do you love him?" he asked. "No." That answer, at least, was true. He turned around slowly. "Then why?" I had asked myself that question 100 times. I had prepared speeches in my head, but in that moment, all I could say was the ugliest truth. Because I was selfish. The room felt smaller. Daniel walked back to the table and picked up the sketchpad. He stared at the drawing of the house for a long time. I showed this to my dad yesterday, he said softly. I told him you were excited about the nursery. That word hit like a blade. Nursery. We had already argued about where the crib would go. He closed the sketchpad. You didn't just cheat on me, he said. You cheated on the life we were building. I tried to reach for his hand. He stepped back. That was the moment I knew. There are things you can repair. Broken trust isn't always one of them. I need space, he said. I nodded, even though every cell in my body was screaming. He packed a bag calmly, methodically, as if leaving for a business trip. At the door, he paused. I loved you in a way that felt permanent, he said. I don't know how to do that anymore. Then he left. The sound of the door closing echoed through the house we had filled with plans. The days after were a blur. I kept expecting him to come back, to text, to yell, to demand more details, to fight for us. Instead, there was silence. And that silence was my punishment. I walked through our home and saw ghosts of the future we were supposed to have. The corner where the Christmas tree would go in the new house. The Pinterest board we made for the kitchen tiles. The dog names saved on the fridge. I ruined all of it. Ryan texted me once after he heard from someone at work that Daniel had moved out. Are you okay? I didn't respond. Because the truth was, I didn't lose Daniel to be with Ryan. I lost Daniel for nothing. A week later, Daniel asked to meet. We sat at a small coffee shop where we had our first date 9 years ago. Back then, he had spilled coffee on himself and laughed. I fell in love with that laugh. Now, he looked older, not physically, emotionally. I've been thinking, he said. My heart pounded so loud I thought he could hear it. I can't rebuild this, he continued. I would question everything, every late night, every smile at your phone. I'd turn into someone I don't want to be. I'll do anything, I said. Therapy, transparency. Anything? He shook his head gently. That's the problem. I never wanted to monitor you. I trusted you because I believed you were my safe place. Tears blurred my vision. You were my future, he said. And now when I picture it, I just see him standing in it with you. There was nothing I could say to that. I don't hate you, he added. Somehow that hurt even more. I just can't stay. When he stood up this time, he didn't hesitate, and I understood something brutal in that moment. Love doesn't always survive betrayal, even if the feelings are still there. It's been 6 months. The land we bought is up for sale. Daniel moved to another state. I heard through a mutual friend that he's focusing on work, that he seems fine. I don't know if that's true. I live alone now. The house is quiet, too quiet. Sometimes I wake up reaching for him, forgetting for half a second that I'm the reason the other side of the bed is cold. I replay it all constantly. The first text, the first lie, the first kiss. People think affairs are about passion. They're not. They're about escape. And escape always has a return cost. If I could go back, I would choose boredom. I would choose routine. I would choose safety. I would choose the man who warmed up my car and drew nursery layouts. But you don't get to rewind after you shatter something that was whole. I told him because I couldn't live with the lie, but telling the truth didn't save us. It just made the destruction honest. If you're listening to this and you're standing at the edge of a decision, thinking one secret won't change everything, I promise you this, it will. Not all betrayals are discovered. Some are confessed. And sometimes the person you confess to walks away not because they stopped loving you, but because they loved you too purely to accept less than loyalty. I had a future, a house with big windows, a nursery filled with light, a man who trusted me without fear, and I traded it for a moment that doesn't even feel real anymore. That's the part no one tells you. The thrill fades, the guilt stays, and the silence after they leave, it's louder than any confession. The silence after he left didn't just fill the house, it filled me. At first, I told myself I had done the right thing. I told the truth. I didn't let him find out from someone else. I ended the affair before confessing. I tried to frame it as integrity. But honesty after betrayal isn't noble. It's just damage control. The first week alone felt unreal. I kept expecting to hear his keys at the door, the soft thud of his boots, the familiar M when he walked in. Instead, there was nothing. I started sleeping on his side of the bed. I don't know why. Maybe to feel closer to something that was already gone. Maybe to punish myself. The house didn't feel like ours anymore. It felt like a crime scene no one had cleaned up. His mug was still in the cabinet. His jacket still hung by the door. The measuring tape he used for house planning was still on the kitchen counter. I couldn't move any of it, because moving it would mean accepting that he wasn't coming back. A month after he left, the paperwork for selling the land went through. I got the email confirmation while sitting in my car outside the grocery store. Property listing active. Just like that, our future reduced to a listing price and square footage. I stared at the screen until it blurred. People walked past my car laughing, arguing, living their normal lives. Mine had split in half. That night, I did something I hadn't done since college. I drank. Daniel knew I rarely drank. I hated losing control. Ironically, but I needed something to numb the replay in my head. The window reflection. The sketchpad, I loved you in a way that felt permanent. Permanent. I didn't understand the weight of that word until I destroyed it. A few days later, I ran into Ryan at work. We hadn't spoken since I ended things. He looked uncomfortable, almost guilty. "How's Daniel?" he asked carefully. "He's gone," I said. Ryan nodded slowly. There was a long pause. "I thought maybe now we could talk," he said. That was the moment everything inside me finally shifted. I looked at him, really looked at him, without the secrecy, without the thrill. And he looked small, not evil, not manipulative, just ordinary, ordinary enough to have cost me my marriage. "There's nothing to talk about," I said. He seemed surprised. "You chose him, he still left." I swallowed. "No," I corrected quietly. "I chose myself, and I didn't like who I was." I walked away. That was the last time I saw him. Months passed. The divorce papers came in a plain envelope. No dramatic confrontation. No fight over assets. Daniel didn't contest anything. He didn't ask for revenge, he just let me go. That hurt more than anger would have. One evening, about 4 months after he left, I opened an old box of photos. There was one from our 3rd anniversary. We were standing on a beach at sunset. My hair was a mess from the wind. Daniel's arm was around my waist. We looked young, but more than that, we looked safe. I studied his face in the photo. He wasn't perfect, he wasn't flashy, he wasn't electric. He was steady, and I mistook steadiness for something lacking. That's what I understand now. Excitement is loud, commitment is quiet. And I confused quiet with emptiness. The real climax of this story wasn't the confession, it was something smaller, more brutal. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a message from a mutual friend. "Hey, just thought you should know Daniel's moving forward. He seems happy." I didn't ask what that meant, but later that night, I made a mistake. I looked at his social media. He hadn't posted much since everything happened, but there it was. A photo, not romantic, not dramatic, just him standing in front of a construction site, a foundation poured into the ground. Caption, "New beginnings." My chest tightened. I zoomed in. The layout looked familiar. The windows looked big. Too big. It wasn't the same land. It wasn't the same design exactly. But it was close. Close enough that I knew he didn't give up on the house, he just removed me from it. I stared at that photo for an hour, not because he had moved on, but because he was still building. Without me, that's when the full weight of it hit. He didn't need me to build the life we dreamed about. I was just supposed to be part of it, and I removed myself. I cried that night in a way I hadn't allowed myself to before. Not dramatic sobbing, just a quiet, shaking grief, because it finally became real. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't a lesson that would circle back to redemption. I wasn't the tragic heroine who confesses and wins her husband back through honesty. I was the woman who destroyed something good because she didn't understand its value until it was gone. A year has passed now. I moved to a smaller apartment across town. New furniture, new routines, but there are still moments. Sometimes I'll see a couple arguing in a store and think, fight for that, don't walk away. And I confused quiet with emptiness. The real climax of this story wasn't the confession, it was something smaller, more brutal. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a message from a mutual friend. "Hey, just thought you should know Daniel's moving forward. He seems happy." I didn't ask what that meant, but later that night, I made a mistake. I looked at his social media. He hadn't posted much since everything happened, but there it was. A photo, not romantic, not dramatic, just him standing in front of a construction site, a foundation poured into the ground. Caption, "New beginnings." My chest tightened. I zoomed in. The layout looked familiar. The windows looked big. Too big. It wasn't the same land. It wasn't the same design exactly, but it was close, close enough that I knew he didn't give up on the house, he just removed me from it. I stared at that photo for an hour, not because he had moved on, but because he was still building. Without me, that's when the full weight of it hit. He didn't need me to build the life we dreamed about. I was just supposed to be part of it, and I removed myself. I cried that night in a way I hadn't allowed myself to before. Not dramatic sobbing, just a quiet, shaking grief, because it finally became real. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't a lesson that would circle back to redemption. I wasn't the tragic heroine who confesses and wins her husband back through honesty. I was the woman who destroyed something good because she didn't understand its value until it was gone. A year has passed now. I moved to a smaller apartment across town. New furniture, new routines, but there are still moments. Sometimes I'll see a couple arguing in a store and think, fight for that, don't walk away.